had something inside of me always telling me, you can't go into that conventional path, like you're going to die.
Nadine, thank you so much for joining me on 20 Minute Leaders. It's so nice of you to give me this time. I know you're very, very busy, so thank you.
Very, very happy to be with you.
Wonderful. So Nadine, I've done quite a few of these so far with really extraordinary people that I'm inspired by each one. I don't think I came across such a non-linear career path as yours, from working with a leading politician in Mongolia, to shaman, which you're going to explain to me what that is, to classical music in New York. I can't even wrap my mind around. Can you please just give me somehow a brief intro about what you've done and what motivates you in doing these things?
Yes. So basically, there's a Danish philosopher, Kierkegaard, who said that when you look back at your life, everything makes a lot of sense. The only thing is you have to live it forward, So at least for everything...
Quite a paradox.
Yeah. So for everything I've lived till now, I can actually give you the logic. I can give you two types of logic. One is very simple. I've always tried to be authentic. Like, I've always tried to hear what is it to be me right now and to be aligned with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the answers to that question have led me to different parts of the world, to different types of professions and experiences and apprenticeships and so on and so forth.
What does it mean being authentic? I need to get to the bottom of that first.
Yeah. There are so many ways of looking at it, but it's kind of it's an instinct that you have inside of you, that when you feel like you're being true to yourself,
Okay.
A feeling that I'm walking the path that I ought to walk, and it's because it feels right to me, and not because someone else has said that it's great, not because I'm trying to please someone else, not because I'm trying to, go after some addiction of power or money or any kind of success, which are all external things, bottomless pits, which in any case have never made anybody happy for more than a few moments. So I'm going to try to not be after those external things, but that feeling inside, when you feel, it's kind of vertical. You feel good. You feel inside, yeah, that feels right.
Okay, Nadine, this is perfect, because I'm right at the age group where I'm at the intersection of making career decisions. I'm choosing a major in college, or I'm applying to different units in the ADF, or choosing internships and jobs. And we have these external forces. I feel that I'm fortunate to be able to go on a path and my parents are supporting me and saying, whatever you feels right to you, go. But I'm seeing so many people around me that are struggling with this dissonance. How can you even expect people, at least my age, to be able to go through that inner path piece and not succumb to the other pressures?
Yeah, it starts with self-awareness. It starts with inner curiosity. Basically, I started my true journey. Maybe let me tell you a few words about my journey, and then I can answer your question, really. So I grew up in Paris. So I grew up in France.
Paris.
Yeah, which is such a privilege, because you get exposed to so much culture and intellect and richness. And I was a pure product of the French excellence educational system. I went to the equivalents of the Ivy Leagues, of high school, prep school, business school, all of it. But I had something inside of me always telling me, you can't go into that conventional path, like you're going to die. Like, it's just an instinct, it's more an instinct of knowing what is not you. Already, that's a good start, right?
Yeah.
And one night I didn't sleep, and it just, like, I put everything together, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to New York. I'm going to work in publishing because I love history. I also studied history. New York is a free place where you can discover who you are. You can explore. Nobody cares.
Okay, big shift.
Right? So that was my first one. And then, of course, then life happens and it's not exactly what you think. And so that's
Yeah.
another thing about your question is like, I always believe like you don't do destiny. You show up, you do your homework, and destiny does destiny. Like you meet certain people in ways that you could never plan. Like you have all those sorts of things like that then direct you. And I ended up meeting someone and developing with him a classical music company, which was back then the biggest portal online for classical music, and also a record label. And I was 24.
Wait. So you came to New York to do publishing.
I was 20. Yeah.
And then at 24, my age, and then you came to found the world's most popular classical music portal online?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I mean. You don't do destiny. You show up, you do homework, you work hard, and there are all those things that you cannot control of encounters. Like I met this amazing man who was also the lawyer for Yves Saint Laurent, the fashion designer, and Pierre Berger. And it was with them that we did that. And so,
wow.
And I went around the world and I was exposed to so much and I learned so much. But in parallel to that, I had this thing about the inner curiosity. Like I had to understand myself better. And I started that journey in parallel. My work, okay. And I was very curious. I was driven by that need. And I ended up meeting a number of teachers, like, let's call it wisdom schools, people who are old souls and teach you a lot of deep things and philosophies and spiritual esoteric traditions. I also ended up in therapy with someone who had studied with Carl Jung.
Oh, wow.
One of the biggest psychologists of all times, and was also so I'd spent many years with him, and her mentor was Carl Jung, one of Carl Jung's right hands.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and then at some point she thought that I should take on her legacy, I should continue her work, so I was also trained in that.
Whoa.
Then in parallel to that, I joined a drumming circle where we were working with shamans from around the world. And so you're asking what are shamans? So in every single culture on earth, before the apparition of monotheistic religions, for instance, in each village, there was always a shaman. Shaman is a Tungus word, which is a tribe in northeastern Siberia.
Okay.
So every time it's another word, so it doesn't matter. But it was like someone who could usually use drum or other things to go into trance, to go to a different state of consciousness.
Okay.
To access information useful for the community, whether it's about the future or to heal.
And they do that through an intensive drumming circle or drumming ritual?
Well, in almost every tradition, a drum is involved, but sometimes also they take stuff, like ayahuasca, you may have heard, or peyote.
I heard about that, yeah.
You're in California, after all. But anyway, so...
For the record, I haven't tried it, but I've heard about it.
Okay. The point is that with drums, just the sound of drum, because it goes like your heartbeat, it kind of tunes down your left brain, and you can access more your right brain, if you want to put it in those metaphoric terms.
Very quickly, recap. What is the difference between left and right? Remind me.
Like more intellectual. You tone down the intellectual side, and you connect.
And more the creative.
The creative, the intuitive, like all those other things.
Wonderful.
And that was, so you see, it was amazing to work with those shamans from all those different traditions, and Native Americans, Siberian, Inuits, and all this, because they still have a connection to nature, to the elements, to the wisdom of life that very often we have lost in the Western world. So it was very enriching. So put all those things together, and all those currents have formed me, and at some point, after 6 years in New York, it felt like I was done. And the guidance came in a shamanic journey that to become who I'm meant to become, I have to move to Mongolia. And and I had never thought in my life I would do that. And it sounded quite insane, but...
I can imagine myself going to my parents and my girlfriend and saying, guys, I've been in Palo Alto for a while. I love the startup world, but to be who I really want to be, I have to go to Mongolia. Yeah,
exactly. And a part of me was saying exactly the same, but then there were so many coincidences, and it was like just so insane, and it felt like, I have to do this. And I started doing a lot of homework, and I ended up in Mongolia thinking I'm going to be trained in shamanism or something, because that's a place where those traditions are still very much there. But 2 days after my arrival, I met this amazing, amazing human being called Oyun, who was back then the leading female politician of the country, who was in a coalition. They had just won the parliamentary elections, and gradually I became her right hand. So I was in government. I was seeing how the government works, the parliament. I was working in the Mongolian parliament.
You were working in the Mongolian parliament and you met her 2 days after coming to Mongolia to be more equipped with a shaman ritual.
Exactly. So you see, that's what life is. You show up, you do your homework. I had done a ton of homework to know so many people in Mongolia, but I could have never planned to end up having a Mongolian soldier saluting me every morning and every evening when I was entering the main building of the country.
But Nadine, you have to come to these experiences open-minded, right? Because I'm sure that in the same token that you had these experiences, you could have missed them if you weren't open to accepting them. Isn't that the case?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You show up,
yeah,
you do your homework, and destiny does destiny. So you're open, but also you look what feels right, what doesn't feel right. I feel it's like a dialogue between your intuitions and things that flow in your life. What Carl Jung called the synchronicities, when there are weird coincidences and you're like, wow, I should really look in that direction.
Okay, so Nadine, just to make sure that I'm following the track, let's recap. So Paris, business and Ivy Leagues and everything great, and then we moved to New York for publishing, but you actually go to create a classic music portal, but then you fall in love with the shaman ritual, so you go to Mongolia to study that, but you actually, and somewhere in the process there, you study with Carl Jung's right hand person, and then you end up leading with a leading female politician.
I always loved politics. I studied international affairs also. So, you can't take things literally. Shamanism is about accessing information to transform reality. Yep. And one way to do it is through politics and development policy. And
I love it.
So, from that angle, she sent me all over Asia to represent her, or Mongolia, which was hilarious. I spent time in Siberia, in Central Asia.
What?
No, but anyway, it was just like an education and exposure to a lot of things. And at the same time, it's -40 in the winter. It's the coldest capital in the world. And at some point I felt like, listen, I can't stay for the rest of my life, trying to give everything I have to help this country. It felt like something had to move, And again, I was like, but where next? No idea. And then in one of the conferences where Oyun had sent me, I met a minister in the Tibetan government in exile, the government in exile of the Dalai Lama. Yep. And he invited me to India to a teaching of the Dalai Lama. And it just felt right. So it was my next one-way ticket. One suitcase, let me go to India.
One suitcase.
Yes. And then in India, again, the guidance, and from one thing to another, I ended up in New Delhi, the capital, where I did a couple of things. I actually developed my therapy coaching practice, and I ended up doing amazing, amazing, amazing work. It was fascinating within the Indian culture, within the Indian society.
What type of therapy was this?
Well, it's a combination of Jungian, right?
Yeah.
With energy and spiritual practices and business leadership strategy stuff.
Basically, so it's one-on-one sort of coaching, mentorship therapy, that combination?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I was working with a lot of fascinating people in politics and business and design and art and all of this. And in parallel to that, I had TV shows on national television, like I was doing a morning show, interviewing Indian personalities on the meaning of life.
In New Delhi.
Yeah. I also had a weekly column. I was interviewing every week another personality on the meaning of spirituality, which was amazing and super interesting. And I met amazing people like that. And I felt, I felt very much at home in India. I resonated a lot with the spiritual, you breathe spirituality, you breathe a different understanding of life, which talks to me a lot. And it was just an absolutely fascinating time. So
wow.
And that's a place where I thought I would always stay. But somehow life guided me differently.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, but I'm in a different phase now, but I'm just giving you the different apprenticeships I've had. And so I moved to California in 2012. And I mostly focus on my coaching, counseling work. Basically, I call it a joint journey because it's not coaching or therapy. I don't resonate with those words so much. I call it a joint journey because it's really a journey with another person. It's an
Yep.
alchemy with that other person where the toolbox is rich. It can be depth psychology. It can be working with dreams to help you understand what's going on inside of you. A lot of transgenerational work, because it turns out we carry so much baggage from the generations before us. And if we don't understand that, we're controlled by that. And that's not a life well lived authentically, So transgenerational work combined with the business stuff or political stuff or media stuff. And all of this comes into my work. I work one-on-one with people and then with their companies when they own a company. It depends.
Yeah.
In cases, I work with people in Europe, in the US, in India,
Wow.
in Asia, the rest of Asia, actually in Israel, a couple of people. So I'm mostly focusing on that right now. And it feels wonderful. It's like the confluence of all the streams of my life.
Yeah, there was some Hawaii in there, right? If I recall correctly.
Yes. I wanted to make it short, so I actually, between New York and Mongolia, all the synchronicities were leading me to the big island of Hawaii, which has an active volcano, and where I went to, totally like a reset button. It was like a reset button of all my Western life. I spent time next to the lava flows. It was extremely powerful what I went through at a very, very deep level. And then it was like, okay.
How long were you there for?
Less than a year. I was less than 6 months even. But it was really, really powerful.
Okay, Nadine, this is just insane. I'm so sad that we have about 4 minutes left. This is okay. You know what? Let's make it easy. I'm coming now to you, and I'm looking for some free advice. And I'd love to know. You've gone through so many experiences and so many authentic experiences. I don't want to know how to be successful. I want to know how to be content. So give me, and whoever else would be interested in this, what are some of your earned secrets after these experiences of what does it mean to really be content and be authentic in a very tangible way? What can people do in the 21st century when we're guided by all these technologies and all of these, races to climb the ladder of success at 22 years old? How can we deal with that?
First of all, just to ask that question is already, it feels to me like a big chunk of the work, like just to be aware that if you just race and race and race, as they often say, it's like climbing the ladder, and then you realize it's on the wrong wall. First of all, ask the question. And to me, one easy way to ask that question is to imagine you're 99 years old.
Okay.
And I ask you, what is, for you, was it a life well lived? And you just imagine, was it a life well lived? And can you just imagine, what would it entail at the age of 99 for you to tell me, yes, it was a life well lived?
Can we trust people my age to have that thought?
Well, that's my second point, is that the answer to that will change over time. And that's totally fine. The point is, ask the question. Try to ask the question.
But ask it again and again, right? It's not ask it one time and that's it.
Yeah, you don't have a definitive answer.
No definitive answer.
So my second point, keep asking, because it changes. Third point, and life is a mystery. So third point, the answer to what is a life well lived is going to be very different inside of you. If you ask the one who talks about everything you want to create or invent as an entrepreneur, everything that you have that you want to do for the world, like your impact, your meaning for society, that's one type of answer. If you ask the side in you that's like a child and just wants to play, if you only work, it's never going to be a life well lived for that side. So can we ask that side too? Third, if we ask the one in you that might want to create a family, for instance, a life well lived, the answer has nothing to do with the guy who's the entrepreneur inside of you, right?
100%.
Number four, If I talk about the lover inside of you who wants to have a gorgeous alchemical relationship with your partner, do you think it's going to be the same answer as, again, the entrepreneur or the child or the father? No.
You're just complicating things, Nadine. This is too hard.
It's not hard at all. The point is, if you understand that inside you, I'll tell you, and that's my next point. That's where I'm going. That curiosity that I was telling you about at the beginning, to try to understand yourself better.
Yeah.
Like, have that curiosity about yourself now. That's what's going to lead you to authenticity. It's basically, can you take a flashlight and go inside yourself? Can you discover those different facets inside of you? Because they have different needs. They have different messages for you. They have different fears. You know, they have different modes of operating. So
I love it.
Explore that a little bit, and maybe inside of you there's a rebel who doesn't care about any of that. Maybe inside of you there's also an inner critic who's all the time telling you not good enough, or whatever. There's a hermit who just wants to explore in the mountains. I have no idea. But can we take a flashlight and explore that? Because if you do that, you get to know yourself a little bit more. So by definition, it's more authentic, the life you lead.
I love it. I love it. No, 100%, 100%. But I'm also aware that it has to be some sort of balance where, you know, I wouldn't want my future 14-year-old daughter to come to me and say, "Dad, you know, I'm dropping out of ninth grade because my inner self says that I should go and do something else," right? So I mean, I do think there should be some balance where we have a path that gives us the tools to be able to think critically and be successful in whatever we do. And you obviously did a lot of that before you went on to experience. Do you think that's valid, or should we also entertain for much younger people who feel that way?
Actually, for me, so I've developed a tool I call the roundtable of inner characters, because I found that most people have about 10 or 12 of those characters. All of us have it. Okay? But at the head of the table, even though it's round, meaning it's equal, and I want to make sure I hear from everyone, okay? The doer, the lover, the caretaker, all of them.
Yep.
Me, at the head of the table, is what I call the wise one, okay? The wise one is the one who has a sense of a balance, has a sense of, yeah, it's not about quitting everything and jumping and taking a one-way ticket and one suitcase and going to the North Pole. You know, that has its limitations. The wise one is going to find the balance between certain drives, certain intuitions, you know, certain ideas, certain instincts, and that's the only one that can actually synthesize all of it and do something that is actually not insane, but will help you walk that path for a life well lived.
Nadine, so much inspiration. I just loved this talk so much. Thank you for the time. I have to put you on the spot once, and I know it's not fair, but I will. I want you to tell me 3 words that you would best describe yourself.
I usually say I'm an explorer. So definitely I'm an explorer. That's an easy one. A couple of others. I have to tell you now.
we can do this later, but I think that everybody would. I mean, it's just, you know, having gone through all these experiences. I'm mainly interested. What type of personality leads people to do what they do? You know, a lot of entrepreneurs are telling me they're passionate. A lot of CEOs are telling me that they're empathetic and they're sensitive to other people. They're leaders. A lot of creative people say that they're artistic. And etc. So obviously an explorer. What else? How else would you characterize it, or how else would your colleagues characterize you?
Well, since I was little, I was talking to people much, much older than me about the meaning of life. So I've always been
philosopher.
You can say philosopher or priestess or something like that, about the seeker, spiritual side. You know, spiritual side, wanting to go deep, really deep. As deep as possible. So it's about the wisdom, you know, so that's a very part to me. And then, the third one I'll tell you next time.
that's that, you know, and I think that it's also amazing how, you know, sometimes I get answers very quickly as if it's rehearsed and people know it. Sometimes it's very, very difficult. And I think that shows a part of it, this inquisitiveness and this not being willing to settle for a definitive characteristic, but being constantly on the exploration. And I think having only 2 out of the 3 is a part of the journey that you're on to continue exploring. And I'm learning from that.
Yeah, because I think we truly, truly, truly are a mystery in so many ways.
I love it.
And it keeps unfolding.
I love it. Nadine, thank you so much. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.